Great turnout. I'm glad to see that you're all here and that you made it on this blustery winter day. For all this horrible weather we're having. Thanks for coming. The folks that have just registered here on site, if you didn't contact me before so that I had an opportunity to order a meal for you, please don't leave here hungry. If there are meals left, please grab one on the way out, because I know that there are going to be some folks who registered who aren't going to show. So by all means, help yourselves. Don't leave hungry. Thanks for coming. I'm going to make a few very brief comments and just present the agenda for today, and then I will introduce Chancellor DuBois. If you have already written out a question for Dr. DuBois, I would like you to pass those towards the center, and I will collect those so that he can answer those questions. He already warned me he's not answering any questions about the budget, so shuffle those aside, and that'll save him a lot of time. After Dr. DuBois is finished with his presentation this afternoon, we have Rich Holine from the University of Virginia's Virginia Beach Center, who will spend 10 or 15 minutes talking to us about some graduate credit course opportunities that can be delivered regionally, either online or in the flesh. And if you have any questions about that, I've sent out a little bit of information through the RCTE mailing list, and I'll be sending out more information about that, but Rich will talk about that for a little bit if you're interested in any way. I ask you please also to fill out the evaluation forms. Those are very important to us to get your feedback, your input, not only on this event, but also on the sorts of professional development that the Regional Centers for Teaching Excellence might be able to help you to achieve. I'll send everyone an electronic follow-up after today's event that will include an article on the topic that the Chancellor is talking about today, which he published in the Community College Journal of Research and Practice in 1993, and numerous other pieces of vital information. If you'd like a copy of the videotape that we're making, and you're from another campus other than Thomas Nelson, please have your the chair of your professional development committee, the chair of your teaching, learning, and technology roundtable, or a dean contact me, and I will send the videotape of today's presentation. I'll be happy to do that so that the folks that are on your campuses will have an opportunity to share this experience with us. I'd like to introduce Dr. Glenn DuBois. Dr. Glenn DuBois became Chancellor of the Virginia Community College System in July 2001 after a nationwide search led to his selection by the State Board for Community Colleges. He had previously held the position of Commissioner and CEO of the New Hampshire Community Technical College System and was Director of Community Colleges for the State University of New York, one of the nation's largest networks of community colleges. I know that Dr. DuBois is having difficulty acclimating himself to our harsh mid-Atlantic winters. But in addition, he has more than 10 years of successful teaching experience and chaired the Department of Criminal Justice at North Shore Community College in Danvers, Massachusetts, where he developed numerous articulation agreements with four-year colleges and universities and received top college awards for teaching. Considered an expert on the dynamics of community college teaching, Dr. DuBois received his doctorate in higher education administration, research, and policy from the University of Massachusetts. He holds a master's degree in juvenile justice and criminology from Eastern Kentucky University, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Florida Atlantic University, and an associate of science degree in police science from the State University of New York at Farmingdale. If you would please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Glenn DuBois.
Thank you, Rick, for that nice introduction. Folks, I'm just delighted to be here to talk about teaching as opposed to budgets and other issues. But I will gladly, if there is a question at the end of my presentation, I will gladly answer any question about budget or anything that might be on your mind. I want to make this event meaningful for you. So if you do have a question, just about anything, on anything, just pass it down, and if I can get to it, I certainly will. As Rick indicated, I arrived last July. I was just thrilled to get here to this college system because, and I've been around. I know what's out there in this country, and as far as I was concerned, it was so easy. They're all about budget. It was so easy to come here because the Virginia Community College system and all of the colleges that make up that system, as far as I'm concerned, in the community college arena, it really resembles the top of the wedding cake. This is a wonderful, wonderful college system. It's just full of talent. We're just so large, seem to be everywhere, and I'm just thrilled to be here. For me, being in the community college business is extremely personal. And I know some of you have heard this story, many of you have not, so I'd like to repeat it. And it's about a young man, quite a long time ago, who was the oldest of 4 sons, raised pretty much by a single parent, a mother, who was a secretary, traveling about 40 miles each day for a minimum paying job. And this young fellow hated public schools, particularly high school. And it was only because he attended that he graduated. And he graduated way at the bottom of his class. And the only reason, I might add, that he attended, because he was afraid of what his mother would do to him if she caught him skipping school. And all the time that he attended, not one teacher, not one coach, not a guidance counselor, not even a friend, ever mentioned that he should go to college. I was that young guy. And when I graduated, I was 17 years old because my mom started me at 4 in kindergarten. Just progressed it out. I got out at 17. And I can assure you I was pushed ahead many of those years. And when I graduated, I wanted to do 2 things. I was working as a dishwasher. And I thought, you know, if I really stick with this, maybe someday, whether it was 7 years, 8, 9 years, I'd work my way up and be a short order cook. The other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to join the service. Because in those days, and maybe today, the armed services would come into the schools. And I met this one guy, and he said, "You would be terrific." I said, "I would?" And I went home, I said that I would be terrific in the armed services. And I said, "I have to go." Remember, I just graduated high school. And my mom said, "Well, you have one problem. You're 17 and you need my signature, and I will not sign." She was concerned about the Vietnam War. And she said to me, and I remember this like it was yesterday, she said to me, "Why don't you go to college?" And I thought she was a nutcase. I thought she just lost her mind. And she persisted. "You should go to college." And in my mind, I can tell you, it was firmly implanted that I was not college material. No college would want me. And I nagged and nagged about the armed services, and she is a stubborn lady. And then finally, to get her off my back, I did apply. I applied to a community college. And they sent back a letter. It was a quick response, and they said, "We'd love to give you a chance." And you know, I thought they made a mistake. I thought they were writing to someone else. But I decided that even though they made a mistake, I'll give it a try. And I remember going the first day. In fact, for the first 2 weeks, I kept that acceptance letter in my pocket because I was convinced that someone was going to pick me out and say, are you Glenn DuBois? And I was like, yes. It was a, you don't belong here, please leave. And I would have gotten in the car and drove off and never to have returned. And that's a true story. And I tell you that because I would not be here speaking with you. I wouldn't be here as your chancellor. I wouldn't have had a wonderful career as a faculty member, as an administrator in this wonderful, noble business if it weren't for that community college that gave me a chance. They did something else to me, and I think we do this all the time with the students that we have. When I arrived at the community college, I had very, very low levels of aspiration. Remember, you're looking at a guy that when he was 17 thought maybe the future was a short order cook. My father, by the way, who I would see occasionally on weekends, never been to college, actually discouraged me when I said, Dad, Mom wants me to go to college. No, you don't really need to do that. You know what I can do for you, son? I'd get you a job where I work. He was the assistant manager of a national shoe store, selling shoes. And he said, and if you work hard, maybe someday you will grow up to be an assistant manager of this shoe store. Thank God my mom was worn out. And thank God I met people like you, because you helped me raise my goals. And I tell students, and I tell faculty, I tell anyone I can, that our job today is not to help our students achieve their goals, because for too many, their goals are too low, and they can rise. And they will do that because of the relationship that you will have with them. And that's what happened to me. I think success kind of breeds success, and then we go on from there. But I wanted to spend some time to talk to you about the relationship, the possibility of the relationships that we can form with students. Not just the relationships that faculty can form, but I will talk to you as a faculty member, as a former faculty member. But everything that I say is also equally as applicable to staff, college presidents, even chancellors, and what they can do. I happen to believe that the magic of what we're all about is found in the relationships that we develop with each other. It's found in the relationships that we develop with students. You're the key. Teachers play a particularly critical role. Let me demonstrate. All of us have had many, many teachers in our lifetime. Right now, think about the top 2 that you've had. Whether that was your second grade teacher or a graduate school professor. Try to bring that person into focus, or those 2 or 3. I find it terribly unfortunate that we stretch ourselves to come up with more than 3. I happen to believe that poor teachers are worse than poor brain surgeons. A poor brain surgeon only takes out 1 at a time. Poor teachers can whack out 100 every term over a whole career. So think of those 2 that really stand out in your mind as absolutely, unbelievably wonderful. And now ask yourself, why did you pick those 2 or that 1? And I know you will not tell me, well, I picked out Mr. Smith because he taught me how to do math. Or I picked out Mrs. Wells because she taught me how to write a paragraph. You won't tell me that. You will tell me something about the personal relationship, the impact that this great teacher had on you. They motivated you, they inspired you, they challenged you, they meant something to you, they moved you. They played a critical role in helping you raise your goals. Let me tell you about one of the best ones I had. This Dateline about 1980. I'm a faculty member. I had a graduate degree in criminology, as you know. I was now in a doctorate program. As a part-time student. It took me 8 years to get through it. I had to drive about 120 miles each way to get from Beverly, Massachusetts to Amherst, Massachusetts. We used to go out on a Wednesday, take 2 courses in the night, stay overnight, get up, leave 5:30 in the morning, and head back to meet my sometimes 8 o'clock class. And I did this for years, but I remember the first time I was walking in, I had a teacher. I can't tell you his name, but his initials are Jack Ruska. And it was a very rigorous course. We had to read a book a week and then write a reaction paper on the book and hand it in, and he would review it. And the next week when you came back, you handed in another reaction paper for the book you had to read for that week, and he gave the one back that you gave in the week before. Now, I'm a very, very busy guy. I'm teaching a full load, I'm commuting all these distances, I have other interests. I could just barely get through reading all of these books. But I read the first one, and I got out my yellow piece of paper, and I took out my pencil, and it was about an hour before I was going into the seminar. I said, oh, that's right, I have to write him a reaction. And I wrote to Dear Jack, great book. Thanks for recommending it. Very useful. I suggest you have other students in out years read the same book. Looking forward to reading the next one. I handed it in. That night we go back. Week goes by. I come back to that same seminar for a week, probably 3 now, right? First week, hi, how are you? This is the course. Second week, handed the first paper. Third week, and again, I forgot about that reaction paper. Dear Jack, another great recommendation. At the end of the seminar, Jack hands back our papers. And on mine, he had 3 words. On the front, there was 1 word, and it said, crap. And on the back, there were 2 words, and they said, see me. And I did, and he sat me down, and he said, you are much better than this. I went out of my way, personally, to get you into this program because I believed in you. I never want to see work like this. You are at the University of Massachusetts. We're in the top 10 in the nation. You can do a lot better. He really cared. He scared the heck out of me. And I looked at Jack, and I said, can I have that other paper back? And I never did that again. Point is, he cared. And all too often, we lose the opportunity to care about what students don't do. You know, great faculty members care if they miss a class. They'll pick them up and call, oh, where are you? What's going on here? Good faculty members, if they know they got garbage in front of them, are going to grab that student and say, this is garbage. Come on. Pick it up here. Good faculty members, good professionals will not lower the river to let people get to the other side. And students, when they get over the initial shock, like I did, will know that this person really cares. That's magic. That's magic. Doesn't happen enough. And it needs to happen even more, particularly in the community college context, where we have people like Glenn DuBois coming to us with low levels of aspiration, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of baggage out there. And they need that encouragement. They need to know that you really, really care. Let me take it to 1980. I'm a social worker now. Incidentally, I'm still a social worker as Chancellor. I'm working with delinquent children in Vermont. Wonderful training ground with working for, setting me up working with college presidents. And I see this advertisement. We need a community college teacher. And someone brought it to my attention. Well, why don't you apply for that? You have a graduate degree. And I said, remember, you know how we program in our own minds our own limitations. I said, I could never be a teacher. I don't know the first thing about it. What college would want me to be a teacher? He said, it only costs you 29 cents to find out. And I did, and I sent off a resume, and isn't it interesting how life is what happens in between all the crazy planning we do? Theodore Roosevelt said, you know, chance favors the prepared mind. You cannot control chance, but you can get prepared, and it will come by, and you can maybe seize it. Maybe get a little lucky. And I get this letter back from North Shore Community College. We'd like to interview you. Please be at such and such a place, such and such a time. It was in the summer of 1980. And I panicked. I said, I'm going to an interview to be a college teacher. I don't even own a suit. All my friends got together and gave me a suit. I didn't even have a watch. They gave me a watch, too. It's kind of funny because the suit that I ended up with was this heavy Vermont wool winter suit, and it was a massive heat wave going on the day that I interviewed. In fact, the guy that interviewed me was in short sleeves and kind of a captain's outfit, and he said, "Boy, you're really dressed up." And quickly, I ended up getting that job. And in about 45 days, I had to move from Vermont, find a place to live, and then show up in a class, and I'll never forget it. It was Tuesday, it was the day after Labor Day, and my boss said, here's your class list. Your first class is at 9:30. My first reaction was, I start work at 9:30? Well, that's pretty good. And then I panicked because I didn't know what to do. And his professional development program for me was to hand me that class list and say, go get them. And I panicked, and it was 9:30 that I had to be in there. And really to deal with my anxiety, I thought I would just go into the class and sit in the middle of the room and watch students come in. Breathe deep. And I'll know what to do. And at 9:30 I'll get up and introduce myself and do something I have no clue about what's going to happen. And I watch the students come in. The first one that comes in is older than I am. I was 26 years old. At 9:25, I'm even now more panic-stricken than I was at 9:15 when I walked into the room. 9:30 comes, and I'm in the middle of the room. Now I'm acting like a student, and I'm deathly afraid of getting up, and I won't get up. And the students are kind of looking at the wall. I'm looking at my watch. And I'm trying to breathe. And I remember thinking of this funny story of this young man whose the mother comes and wakes him up on a Sunday morning. She says, "You're late, you better get up, you got to get to church." And he says, "I'm not going to church. I'm tired of church. I think they're all hypocrites, I'm done with it. I'm not going to church." And she said, "You are going to church." He said, "Give me one reason why I have to go to church." She said, "You're the minister." And like that guy had to get up out of bed and go to church and minister, I had to get up and be a teacher. Now I got through it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew one thing. At the end of that experience, I knew that I had no clue on how to be a teacher, but I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. It wasn't a wild ego thing, it was just this wonderful challenge. I just absolutely love this. I want to know everything there is to know on how to do this job better than anyone. I want to know. I want to know. That's when I got into the University of Massachusetts to craft an entire doctorate program on the study of effective teachers. It was a wonderful experience for me because it didn't have a set curriculum. I negotiated it and wrote it up. Actually went to Harvard for a couple of courses and really focused entirely on how to be the greatest teacher I possibly could be. And it was a fantastic search, the process for me. You know what new teachers do? And if it happened to you, just nod your head. New teachers spend the first 4 years of their career worried that they don't know enough. I did. I stayed up to midnight reading everything I could. I would prep 4 hours sometimes for a 50-minute deal. I would purposely throw out the textbook I used in one semester and make myself get another textbook to force myself back into content. I worried I didn't know enough. And you know, not one student from day one ever challenged me on that. But I worried to death over it. And new faculty do worry about it. After about 4 years, what great faculty, or potentially great faculty, do is they give themselves a break. They say, you know, I think I know a lot about this stuff. And then they start working on the relationship, on the delivery, using other venues, technology. By about 1984, I'm now less interested in criminology, and I'm more interested in the mission of community colleges, students that we serve, about teaching. And that's why I shifted from further work in criminology to a research degree in education focused just on great teachers. And I spent 10 years focused on this concept. I was consumed with it. If you would have told me then that, you know, in the year 2002, Glenn, you're going to be the Chancellor of Virginia Community College, I would have said, you're crazy. I'm not going to be. I'm going to be known as the best community college teacher in this college. I had a wonderful opportunity, unlike some other doctorate students, in that my dissertation was such a fabulous experience for me. You don't usually hear that from, for those of you that have gone through the process. It's usually some kind of terminal illness that you've been diagnosed with. And fortunately enough, you kind of escape it and you get it. But for me, it was absolutely, absolutely wonderful. I want to tell you what I did and what I learned and what I shared, and then just share some other kinds of observations based upon my own experiences and the experience of others about this wonderful business of ours called community colleges. And where is my friend Rick? He's going to make sure I do not spill over time. I get so giddy about this stuff, but I keep going to about 4 o'clock this afternoon talking about this stuff, but I won't. Up until the time I started on my dissertation, I read everything there was about great teachers. And you know, if you read it, it's lacking. Because this is what it says. Great teachers know their subject matter. Okay? Great teachers are prepared. Great teachers have a casual relationship in the community college context with their teachers. Great teachers give a lot of feedback to their students. All true. All true. Yet something was there. I wanted to understand how come some really just stand out. How come some become that few that you just thought about on why they're so wonderful? What is it? So I shifted my investigation from examining what good teachers do to an examination of who they are. In other words, instead of focusing on the paintings, I focused on the artist. And let me share with you how I did that and what I found. I spent almost 3 years living with 5 great teachers. Now, how did I know they were great? Because any group I talked about said, oh, that's the great one. That's the dean said, Ron, that's the great one. Students, oh, that's the great one. Peers, that's the great one. Was it not easy to identify the 5 greats? I could come back here Monday and do that in about 2 hours. That's not easy. Pardon me, that's not hard. And then I asked if I could be part of their lives for about a little over 2 years. And it was very interesting because they all looked at me and they said, why would you want to study me for 2 years? I said, just trust me. I think I'm going to find something here. Would you please let me do it? And they said, sure, sure. I took I took all of their classes. I spent hours with them in their offices, in their homes, in their cars. And I asked them on separate occasions 4 questions. First occasion, only 1 question. Second occasion, another question. Third and fourth. And I would take these. And each question generated a response that lasted about 2 hours. First question. And we did not do this over the course of one day. First question. Tell me stories about you growing up. And typically they would say, well, there's really not much to say. And 2 hours later, I cannot give them enough signals that I have enough recorded. Tell me stories about you growing up. And you'd be surprised, or maybe not surprised, at what I'll report to you on that question in a moment. Second question. Tell me stories about you as a student. Again, not much to say. 2 hours later, I can't shut them up. Third question. Tell me stories about you, what you were doing before you became a community college teacher. On and on and on. They would talk and talk. Open-ended, unguided. And the last question. Tell me stories about you as a community college teacher. Very open-ended. And I had all of this rich information, plus personal experience with these people, personal observation, spent a lot of time with them, and I went off to a little cabin someplace, and I put all of this information on the wall, and I looked at it, and I read it, and I was looking, where are the common threads here? What can I find that really helps me understand, help the world understand why these 5 greats are who they are, by focusing on their lives. And I found 4 characteristics that up until then you would not find in any article. You would not find in any research publication. And I'd like to share them with you. And I have a hunch that several, many, or maybe all of these 4 characteristics fit for many of you here. The first one, these great teachers faced at a very young age personal adversity. I mean, they were in adverse situations. From one great master teacher, terrible low levels of self-esteem. Her family moved around, I think, in 6 different states by the time she hit 2nd grade. Another great teacher lived in poverty. His mother and father were married and remarried to each other 4 times. He lived in a shack, and the family didn't even have a bathtub. And there were other examples, and I won't go through all the details, but they had tough situations. Very, very tough. And it was someone in the helping profession, often a teacher, sometimes a minister, that helped them through this adversity. And because of that, they became attracted to the helping profession. I find it not to be surprising that a lot of great teachers at one time aspired to have careers in the ministry. That does not surprise me. Does not surprise me. So that first characteristic, they had it tough. They had it tough. And because of some magic moment, often with a teacher, they got through it. Second characteristic, they have never forgotten these individuals and the impact that they had on their own lives. They have not forgotten them. In fact, they are these former lives reincarnated in the classroom. They have taken on some of those motivations. In other words, what was done to them by these individuals, now they have internalized and they want to do it to others. They were inspired and they become that inspiration, and they mimic it. And I find that kind of interesting because that tells me that if I really was a great teacher, when I'm long gone, I'll still be around in some way, and the impact that I've had on others. In other words, great people, great teachers they do achieve a sense of immortality, and it's called remembrance. It's absolutely wonderful. Third characteristic, this is important for the faculty in here. They have a very clear vision on what their role is about when working with students. And it is not the subject matter. It is not the subject matter. It is all about changing lives. I call this the teacher as Messiah. And truly, great teachers are messianic. Their goal is to raise people's aspirations, to change another life. It's not math, it's not history, it's not psychology or chemistry or biology. That's important. That only gives you the license to do really the great work. And the great work is to change people's lives. And they have that down. They know it. And you know, we kind of get it wrong, because when we look for faculty members, what's the first thing that we ask? What's the first thing that we look at? Have you mastered the content? I'm not saying that's irrelevant, but that's not the chief reason why we should put someone in a classroom. I say the chief reason we put someone in the classroom is because they know that through their relationship with students, they can inspire people. That's what we should look for. And these great teachers understand it. They call it the teacher as Messiah. Never, ever underestimate the impact that one human being can have on another. That's what it's all about, and these great teachers know it, and they use psychology, the discipline, or chemistry, or biology, or whatever, as the venue to really do what they know they have to do. That's to change people's lives. And the last characteristic that I found was that these great teachers, they have come to depend upon their students more than their students depend on them. Let me say that again. These great teachers need students more than students need them. Let me explain. What does a great singer need to validate that they're good, they're great? They need an audience. They need an audience. What does a great minister need? They need a congregation. What does a great teacher need? They need a classroom full of students. And I remember when I was thinking about this, it was in the summertime, and I'm with these teachers, and you know what? They're all bored. You know, it's like beginning of August, they're itchy, they're talking about getting back. They want to get this, they want to get that. Their minds are already, they want to get back. Because what they're now doing, they had enough of the pool, they had enough fishing, they don't feel fulfilled. And it's really through this wonderful interaction, this human interaction, where their needs are met. And they tease some sense of satisfaction out of life. The worst thing you can do to a great teacher is to say you no longer have the class. It's just devastating. So I did kind of characterize that, in that context, these students, these teachers really need the students kind of more than the students need them. And they know that. And they know it. And that's really what generates this love affair that they have with their profession. And I was working with teachers that if they went out on the free market, went out into the world of work, they could have increased their salary 20%, 50%, 100%. But they know something about that. They know that the world out there is fairly anti-intellectual as opposed to the world that they have. I mean, think about this. They have this wonderful venue. You know what even makes it even better for faculty? They walk into the class and they close the door and they can do anything they want to. I don't see it. President doesn't see it. Dean doesn't see it. Oh, maybe once a year we're invited in to kind of do this observation. They can get right through that. But what a wonderful job to walk. I mean, just to walk in a class, close the door, do what you want to do. Having the wrong people in that context is devastating. It's devastating. I tell college presidents and other college leaders that we do not, the leadership, we do not put enough of ourselves into the process of selecting a faculty member. Presidents and others will say, well, we let the departments do that. Well, you know what departments have a tendency to do? They hire themselves. Show me a department where they all have graduate degrees from this particular university. I'll probably show you a department that will hire another one. In fact, most academic leaders will spend more time shopping for a suit than getting involved in the hiring of a faculty member. And I would suggest that it's the most important hire for two reasons. One, just what we've been talking about. It's too important. Think of the impact that these people have on others with respect to our mission. We're changing lives. And number two, if you want to look on the financial side, it's a $1 million decision. Because most community college faculty, if they hit here at 26, they will spend their entire career, typically, here. At the end of that career, if you add it up, it's about $1 million decision. So I've been trying to encourage leaders to get involved in these very, very crucial and important decisions. Who are you going to put in that classroom to inspire students? That's the challenge. And it's a job not just for anybody. It's a job not just for anybody. And the great teachers that I studied, this is interesting, do not want to teach in any other context. They love the community college context. Because to them, it's a question of helping a student, like I was, when I was 17, go from here to here. Very different than what a professor does in Harvard. What makes places like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, what makes them publicly viewed as so wonderful is because of the people they do not let in. Because of the people they do not let in. You know, if we judge the quality of medical care on, for example, mortality rates in a certain hospital, well, wouldn't it be great for that hospital only just to let in very healthy people? In effect, the Harvards, what they do is they select out the 95% who will not go. And I suggest to you, and the research will bear me out, it's easier to teach in that context. It's easier to teach in that context. All you have to do is ask a question. Hey, great idea. Do a research paper on that. I'd like to respond to that next week, and we'll have a discussion. They do all of the discussing. But in the community college context, we got to start where Glenn was. And we got to help them here. And that's the challenge, and they're up for it. So you go with Glenn from here to here. As opposed to perhaps someone in a very elite university who might go from here to here. That's the challenge. That's the rich grounds. And that's why we have to focus in this context, really, I believe, on the relationship. On the relationship. So I crossed a terribly frightening threshold in my career. In 1990, I became less interested in this, in my discipline. And I became more interested in doing something else. By now I was married, and I had my doctorate, and I had 2 children. And I had an opportunity. Someone nominated me to be a dean of continuing ed, by the way, or workforce development, out at a college in Western New York. And I went out there and talked to them, and here's one of those other, life is what happens to you in between the planning you do. And they called me up. They said, we'd like to offer you the job. And my salary probably increased by 50%. And I had these 2 children, and unfortunately for me, I was kind of thinking of the future, and I'm going, I'm not, teaching is starting to be a luxury I'm not sure I can afford. And I started talking to my friends, my faculty friends, because in those days, I just hung out with the faculty. Oh, we went to the staff meetings, and the president got up, and all the baby deans got up and handed out all their paper. And I said, wow, they're real good. I don't want that job. Look at all the stuff they're doing. I just walk in the door, close it, and I do this wonderful stuff with students. I just love it. And so I started talking to my friends. And I said, what do you think? I think I'm going to do this. And all of them said, don't do that. You'll be a terrible administrator. I said, why do you say that? They said, because you're such a darn good teacher. Don't you know that, Glenn? That good teachers make awful administrators. And I said, I already told them I'm going to go. And they said, well, you're going to hate it. And they scared me because I believed them. And I believed that I was really going to be a fish completely out of water. But I did go. And ever since, 11 years from now, I have been an administrator in various capacities. And I can tell you from personal experience that I think good teachers become very good administrators for the same reason they were good teachers. They're motivated to help others. They get the mission. They're excited and passionate about what they're doing. It's not about their own ego. It's all about, still in a different capacity, what they can do to help even change even more lives. And I got to tell you, as a chancellor, and this is my kind of 3rd system CEO role, I still approach it like I approach the classroom. That's about you. What can I do to help you to have that impact on the people you're working with? Thanks. So I still approach my job as I did as a teacher. I'm not reading criminology books. I'm not going to the classroom. Oh, sometime you should come on in and watch one of my meetings with college presidents. That's a nice group. But I do try to approach it that I'm trying to be motivated to helping others achieve their goals and hopefully even raise their goals. So for me, it's very, very personal. I absolutely love the community college arena. And for me, it all started as a classroom teacher in 1980 who didn't have a clue on what to do. So let me stop here and open it up for some questions. I know I have some in my hand, but perhaps there might be one in the audience I can respond to right away. You have one, Shirley?
Yeah, my question is, why didn't you become a minister?
You know, when I cut out of church to go play that baseball game, I thought I was going to be in deep trouble. I just didn't track out that way. And in some cases, I do see myself in a role of other minister, but it's just, I guess, non-secular. Okay, let me go to some of these questions. Very interesting question in front of me. What are the hidden characteristics of great students? Excellent question. Great students are hungry for that relationship. They're open to it. They need it. They need it. Great students will try things. They will reach for something that they cannot, they'll touch because they know you're behind them. And they'll do it. They'll try it. And they know they're going to fall, but they won't be that afraid because they know you're there. Great students are also involved. You know, one of the indicators for student success, and I think all of the folks in student services here would agree with me, is involvement. Show me a real good student, and I'll probably show you someone who's involved with the institution in other ways, clubs, student government. They're involved. Great students, at some point, really hook on that it's all about education. That's the transformation. Good educational program, this is my belief, perhaps you don't share it. A good educational program is better than any psychiatrist that's probably out there. Good students become hungry for the relationship, for the challenge. They'll take the risk, they get involved. Here's a question. I'd like to hear about Chancellor's views on how to deal with difficult students. I've had experience there. Let me tell you the true story. When I became a dean at Genesee Community College, I had a division. It was also called, I had many divisions. I had all the, we had 4 extension centers. I had all the credit, non-credit, all the business and industry training. We also had 300 students studying full-time on either a business degree or a general studies degree. And what made them really unique is they were all incarcerated. And where I was, there were 5 major prisons, and we had a large inmate higher education program. In those days, there was financial aid for inmates to go to school. And I walked into the division, and there were, each prison had a director, and there was a director of all of them who reported to me. And the first thing they did, you know, they lived in the prisons. Prisons are very cynical environments. They're difficult. And the toughest one, the toughest prison, was Attica. You've heard of it. And they all said to me, well, because I said, you know, I did the thing that you expect me to do. I want to support you. Yeah, sure. I want to understand you. Sure, sure. And they said to me, you know, no one that has come before you has ever really gotten involved. Oh, they might come out to a graduation. I said, I'll tell you what. What's your toughest place? They said, Attica. I said, I'll teach criminology there. And I did. And I did it for every semester that I was there. You know, here's something else. Good teachers understand that they will learn by their students. I learned an awful lot about criminology. Teaching in Attica. This was a dungeon. They'd work all day in the prison program, and they all went at night. We showed up at 6 and we left at 9. And in this context, I met some of the best students I've ever worked with and some of the worst. Let me tell you about the situation that references to this question. Attica is a place for some people that have picked up some bad habits along the way. And one of the things that folks have who are spend an awful lot of time incarcerated is what happens is you really do not develop any positive social skills. And I remember my first class, or maybe it was my second, and I had about 15 inmates in a small room. I was up in the front, and I said, "Well, who wants to comment on such and such?" And I see an arm go up. And just before I was going to say, okay, I hear this one jumps up and says, "Well, I'd like to comment." This guy goes, "Hey, wait a minute, I was talking to a man here." And then all of a sudden, someone gets up back here and says, "No, you sit down." I've seen this whole class almost destroy into a riot right in front of me. And in that case, I just said, "I am the man." And everybody stopped. We laid down the rules on how we're going to operate. And if we can't, let's just quit right now. And I also took advantage of a certain situation because I knew, as a criminologist, having spent many years in a prison environment, the best thing that they had going in their lives was this class, and they were not going to lose it. So we just came to an understanding on how we were going to operate. What's very interesting and problematic about the community college context is that everything in your classroom, or everything out in public, comes into your classroom. You know, you give everybody a chance. So first of all, great teachers are not shocked when they see social problems developed in their class. That doesn't blow them away. They're not shocked. They go, "We got to deal with this stuff." And you know, and sometimes we are looking at some students that are not ready to be here. I mean, we're not all things to all people. And sometimes some of our students need to go someplace else and do some things that they didn't do before they got here. And when they accomplish that goal, whatever it is, they come back. And you see it happen all the time. Whether a student has a substance problem, they need to take care of that. They need to take care of that. You know, we're often not, we were referred to as an open door institution. Sometimes we're kind of a revolving door, in that students drop in and they have to drop out for some reasons to take care of some problems, and then they come back. And we're open to that. Only other piece of advice for faculty is, if you're looking to build student cohesion, you have to give them a common enemy by raising your academic expectations. Let me say that again. If you want students to focus and cooperate and come together and dig in, raise your standards. Raise your standards. Because the great teachers, when I asked you in your lives, who were they? If I ask you, how were their standards? A lot of you are going to go, they were pretty tough. I know Jack Ruskell was. Wonderful ability to focus a student's mind and get them to cooperate by giving them a common enemy. And nothing like a tough chemistry course or a tough math course to do it. Make them help each other out. Make them help each other out through that process. I have time for maybe one more. Here's a question, good one. I'm going to answer just one question and then just stop again and see if there's anything out there before we just completely wrap up. Question, what is being done to give adjunct faculty any type of security or recognition? Good topic. As you know, we are a college system that relies heavily on adjunct instruction. Looking at the budget situation that we're facing, we will rely even more heavily, at least in the next biennium ahead. We're about half and half now. Actually, we've gone beyond half. Half of our sections are taught by part-time folks, and half are full-time. I happen to believe that a community college needs a healthy mixture of both. Let me tell you why. Full-time faculty And remember, part of our mission is to help people come here, pick up skills, and get a job in this economy. Full-time faculty, the longer they remain in the role of full-time faculty, as the years go out, they go up on a scale. And the scale goes, they become less pragmatic and they become more theoretical. Myself, I came from the field of corrections. I was working in juvenile corrections. 1980, I could talk about, this is what you do in an institute, here's how you do this, and this is what the court system looks like, and this is what happens here, and da. Very on the ground, very pragmatic. That was 1980. By 1986, I wanted to talk about justice, punishment, crime. It's natural. You become more theoretical. That's why I think it's important to bring part of that real world in here through adjunct instructors, particularly in the career fields, because they know exactly what's going on because they're doing it every day. So good community colleges need a mixture of both. I've spent an entire career, I've also been an adjunct faculty member, kind of knocking my head against the wall. What can we do to help adjunct faculty feel included? Now, I got to tell you, I've met a lot of adjunct faculty, they're fine. I know just what I want to do. I'm coming in, I'm teaching my law class, and that's it, and I love it. I love it. But I had this experience. I was at a college recently, Central Virginia Community College, and the faculty came out and all the staff, and we had a nice little reception. And then I stopped, and we had some questions, and in the back, there was this delightful woman in the back. And she said, I'm an adjunct faculty member, and I've been here a long time. And you know, I don't, at one time I wanted a full-time job, but that's not my thing now. I don't need that. I even think she told me how old she was. And she goes, but I gotta tell you something. I've been here for like 15 years. And I kind of resent it when I get an official letter from the college that identifies me as a temporary employee. And I said, you know, we could probably fix that. I was involved in other systems where adjuncts actually had, because of seniority and because of solid performance, the colleges did develop a system that actually gave them certain privileges over other adjunct faculty members, such as first pick of the litter, you know, after the full-time faculty have received their assignments. I've been involved, and I'm very supportive of systems that have pay differential for adjunct faculty that attribute years in service or performance. I don't see that happening in the next, in the immediate future. We are going to go through quite a rough ride in this next biennium with respect to the budget. Even though I think it's important to invite adjuncts to certain faculty. They like to be, certain events rather, they like to be invited. Even if you don't see them, they do like to be invited. I think it's important for this institution and others. You may do this. You can come up with some very inexpensive ways to recognize the importance of adjunct instructors in certain adjuncts. When I was a continuing ed dean out in Genesee Community College, I had 100 adjuncts. My division had all the 100 adjuncts. Every semester we gave teaching awards, only for adjuncts. We did it over a dinner at the institution, and we kind of talked it up. And you know, they kind of liked it. They kind of liked it. So we look for ways to try to evolve. It's difficult. Remember, the core of the adjunct there is that you're dealing with very, very busy people. And I suggest that many of your adjuncts are perfectly fine, you know, just what they're doing. But you probably can look for some ways to signal how much you value them, because we do need them. Not only on the budget side, but they help us strengthen our mission. They help us strengthen our mission. Yes?
Dr. DuBois, community colleges are terrific places to work, and you mentioned that people come here when we're 26 and we stay till we're 66, and that's often a good thing, but another thing that happens is people become incompetent, they become indifferent, and they still don't go away. When there are people who are really banging at the doors, begging, please let us in, please let us in. And that's not just faculty, that's deans, that's presidents. Do you envision yourself having a role as chancellor in dealing with this problem that we all acknowledge to be true?
I also will acknowledge that it's true. Let me comment on the question, but to get directly to your question, I didn't come here to run college campuses. I don't think you want me to do that. I came here to focus on 3 goals. Goal number 1, raise resources. Goal number 2, raise resources. Goal number 3, raise resources. We have a lot of work to do in raising our public image. I'm going to work on it. This college system has been overly reliant on state aid. Now that the legislature is about to sneeze, we're going to get pneumonia. We need to look at other ways to raise resources. I need to find the college presidents, the college leaders that we need that will go out to the private sector and raise resources and get very aggressive in raising federal revenue. I am personally involved right now in a $5 million congressional earmark campaign, working closely with the congressional delegation. That's what you want me to do. You don't want me to come in here and run college campuses. The first time I met the college presidents, it was great. I was walking in the room, they're all sitting around this big horseshoe. I could feel their eyes burning on my bald spot on the back of my head as I walk up to take the front of this big table. And I looked at them all, and I think it's one of the first things I said, Shirley. I said, you know, I've spent a long time now working with college presidents, and I'm pretty sure I know what you want me to do. And they're all kind of leaning in. They're waiting for the answer of my leading question. And I looked at him, I said, you want me to leave you alone? That doesn't mean I'm going to ignore them. They did not, I don't think you want a chancellor to act like a college president. I don't think that that's in your best interest. What is important is that I have confidence in the leaders to do the kinds of things that we're talking about today. And let me free myself up to concentrate on those 3 goals. But let me talk a little bit about the question, because it's a very, very good question. The question is, what do we do with people that are burned out? You know, most people aren't burned out. Burnout to me is a condition where you just can't do it anymore. That's it. You know, it's time for the big black pill. I can't do it anymore. It's really a problem of bored out, not burnout. But what do you do with those people that are just stuck? They don't seem to care. They're going through the motions. And every time you look at them, they say, I only have 6.5 more years to retire. We know they're there. One thing you don't do is you don't ignore them. I happen to believe that we have to come up with some ways to encourage these folks to go on to another success. And sometimes I think we can do things to see if that little spark in there can fire up. And you know, I've seen some really interesting things in my career. I started in 1980 with chalk and talk. And the most profound technological innovation that was in that classroom was something we stole from the bowling alleys. It was the overhead projector. That was the most profound technological innovation. And in my career, even 4 years ago, Glenn, do you know most of your faculty, wherever you are, they will be using the internet to enhance their class delivery? I would have said, you're crazy. And that's indeed what's happened. And in that, I have seen some bored out faculty come alive through this. They found this technology. They found a different way to communicate. You know, sometimes, and I'll reference my remarks to keep it just on faculty. Sometimes, what ends up happening is we all want to feel good about what we do. I think that's a natural condition. We all want to feel purposeful, important. And what happens sometimes is you might have a faculty member who should not have been hired, by the way. Should not have been hired, but they're there. And sometimes, maybe, they can make a great contribution, but not in that classroom. maybe in some other contexts. You know, in heavily unionized environments, which I have worked in, this is not an across-the-board statement, but in heavily unionized environments, some of the poorest faculty members have risen to some of the highest union leadership positions in the organization, simply because they really get their sense of life's work in this union work. And they've actually finagled this deal that they don't even teach anymore. That's typically true in Massachusetts, where I was for 10 years, and others. So I think everybody wants to feel like they can play a meaningful role. And this isn't the across-the-board fix, but it's important for us, when we can, to make sure our socks are on the right shoes. And I will acknowledge that there are some in the classroom that shouldn't be. There are some among our staffs that have bored out. And you know who they are. And what we end up doing is we end up dragging those anchors along. And it's remarkable the progress we do when we drag them along. But we are in a public sector. There are rules that the private sector does not have. But we got to look for ways. And more importantly, I think one of the ways that we really reinvent an institution and give it vigor, one of the key ways that we do that is by the people that we let come work here. And we need to take that very seriously. And that's why I want to emphasize again how important it is to get involved in those kinds of decisions. And this is a college sector, and Rick, I'm going to end on this note. This is a college sector that from maintenance crew to president, across Virginia, is about to experience a tremendous opportunity. It's one that we should not miss, and that is the massive retirements that will happen, that are happening, and will continue to happen in the next 5 years. When I looked at it, it looks like about 40 to 45% of our workforce will be retiring in the very early part of just my tenure here. So we have opportunities to reinvigorate this great institution. And lastly, I all want you to know that Thomas Nelson Community College is my community college. I live in Williamsburg. So get it right here, all right? My kids are coming here, so get it right. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. DuBois. It's good to know that we've got a leader for the system that cares as passionately about teaching as I know that all of us in this room do. Appreciate it. I've got one quick announcement. First of all, I want to remind you, please, to turn in your evaluation forms so that we can get the essential feedback from you on this event, and also your very vital ideas about how the Regional Center for Teaching Excellence can help you to achieve your professional development goals. They don't have a huge budget, so don't count on a lot in that particular way, but in other ways, by all means, please do give us your suggestions and leave the evaluation forms on the registration table. I have one other announcement, and Dr. Pippins has left, but just for those of us who were not aware of this, the Hampton Roads Media Professionals Association has bestowed its academic award for 2002 upon TNCC President Dr. Shirley Pippins. The competition for this award included all of the college presidents in the Hampton Roads area. Dr. Pippins was nominated for the award by Thomas Nelson Community College public speaking instructor Ala Gazelle. Dr. Pippins will receive the award at ceremonies at the Roper Performing Arts Center on Granby Avenue in Norfolk on February 9th, starting at 6 p.m. The black tie affair will be followed by a reception at the Clarion James Madison Hotel. Tickets are available through Ticketmaster at $40 a person or $45 per person at the door. In absentia, congratulations, Dr. Pippins. For those of you who want to stay around for a few minutes to hear what Rich Holline has to say in regard to some graduate credit course opportunities through UVA, please do stay around for a few minutes. Howard?
The Hampton Roads Black Media Professional.
I'm sorry. The Hampton Roads Black Media Professionals.
That was great. I really appreciate both opportunities that might be of interest to you or your staff for professional development. For about the last year and a half, we've had off-year and individual colleges in our region about some professional development needs and goals, and perhaps ways that the 7 regional sites around the state that the university has as its main mechanism for outreach and public service. Much of what we do, and we are physically housed over in Virginia Beach, that's where the center is at the Pembroke Office Park, but our region includes all of Southampton Roads, the peninsula up to and including Williamsburg, and the Virginia portion of the Eastern Shore. All of that area, what we attempt to do is to be in touch with various professional groups and find out what kinds of needs they have and see whether or not the university has appropriate resources, and we can arrange to bring those resources to the center or out on site to the various requesting groups to offer them some meaningful instruction. Most of what we've been doing so far has been centered around stuff for educators at K-12 level, teachers and administrators, of both professional development courses and graduate degrees in instruction, reading, ed administration, etc. The opportunities for serving community college faculty with some both pedagogical and content-specific kinds of courses is very real. There are 2 courses that have been in discussion for about the last 6 months or more, but I just want to give you an update on, and I think the mechanism for where we go with this is if you can convey to Rick your interest and how many others you may be aware of at your school that would be interested, we can work out the details of the time and the place, etc. But these would be 2, for openers, 2 graduate level courses, each of which would carry 3 credits of course award and be suitable for people pursuing either an ed specialist or a doctoral degree. One course fits very apropos with today's presentation. It's called Teaching the Community College Student in the 21st Century. It was first offered a year ago fall at Patrick Henry Community College, got very, very well received, and Pam Rowland, who taught that, is a master teacher herself, and she is ready, willing, and able to come and bring that to our area as soon as this coming fall. The other course is an interdisciplinary course emphasizing a variety of content and familiarity with UVA's digital archives. It's called Uncle Tom's Cabin and American Culture, and it's really suitable for a variety of disciplines, particularly in the humanities. That again is a 3-credit course. It's taught by Steve Railton, who's a professor of English. Dynamite course. Both of these courses, by the way, have the potential design and the presumed design, unless you told us differently, of a mixture of on-site delivery by the instructor, online instruction, and some DVC interaction using electronic classrooms that we have both at our center and you guys have here, and I know each of the community college campuses have. So the venue, the format for delivery would likely be, unless you wanted to do more of one and less of the other, a mixture of those 3 modes of sharing information and engaging in dialogue. And each of those courses would have access to a variety of online stuff that the university feels very, very good about, and which, apart from the course itself, become yours to be using subsequently in your own teaching, no matter what. So both of those 3-credit courses, the Uncle Tom's Cabin course, unfortunately Steve, who's the brains behind that, the soonest he can deliver that course confidently without conflicts in his research and teaching commitments already would be not this summer, but the summer after. So we've got a potential with the community college student type course, pedagogy oriented, this fall. We have potential in the summer of 2003 to do the Uncle Tom's Cabin course. We also have the opportunity, a 3rd course I'll mention is a history course called Civil Rights in U.S. and Virginia History, taught by Will Thomas, who's the archivist for the university's digital archives. Great guy. This has been written up, and he's received numerous national awards for the archives that he maintains and how he uses them in instruction. And the purpose behind that course is, again, a combination of getting more familiar with the whole history of civil rights from the 50s up through the 70s into the early 80s. That's the time frame that's covered, both nationally and particularly as that was played out in Virginia, but more importantly, to give you a comfort level with what you can get your hands on in the way of historical material through the archives at UVA, and then grab those, borrow them, mix them, and blend them any way you might want into your classroom instruction. Having said that, these three courses, and that could happen anytime during this coming academic year, starting in the fall of 2002. If you have an interest in either or more, one or more of those three courses, I would ask you to please communicate with Rick about that and when you would be available to take it. Most of these would be offered in a way that would not interfere with regular daytime teaching. The plan would be to offer it on a combination of either weekday evenings or some weekday evenings and or weekend formats, late afternoon, or as I said, into the evening, so that it would hopefully stay away from people's daytime teaching responsibilities. The other thing, though, is if you have other ideas, you say, Rich, that sounds sort of good, but I'm not really in those disciplines, I don't really care about those. But what I am interested in is the following. I would like to hear about that as well as Rick. And I would appreciate your either calling me or emailing me, and let me, if I may, just very quickly give you that information. My phone number is 552-1890, 552-1890, extension 13 gets me directly. It's Rich Holein, it's Hoehlein. The other way to get me is email, and that's Holein, again, it's a little tricky, Hoehlein, at Virginia, spelled out, virginia.edu. Either of those, if you have other ideas for needs, etc., content that you'd like to see the university consider bringing to this area, I'd like to know about that, and I will talk with Rick and the deans of instruction of the various colleges to see where we can go with that. People have expressed interest in the past for having a doctoral degree delivered through the university here in this area. I happen to think that would be a fabulous thing. I also don't doubt that there's great interest in that among many, many people. And we had some early discussions this past year about that. The dilemma is a resource dilemma. There are frankly not enough Curry School of Education faculty or funds to support more faculty to bring that kind of degree out to our region or frankly any other region of the state. The only place that has a doctorate in higher ed administration, and it's in higher ed administration as opposed to content-related disciplines, that UVA is offering right now is over at the Southwest Center in Abington. And again, there's a limited number of faculty there doing that. There's no commitments once they get through this cohort group to repeat that. And as the Chancellor said, I think the realities for all of us, unfortunately, the next 2 to 4 years are very, very lean. It's going to be very tight. But having said that, course by course, graduate credit in this area, either pedagogically related, meaning emphasizing classroom instruction techniques, trends, characteristics of students, use of technology, that's very easily deliverable. We're doing that all the time with public schools all around our region, including on the peninsula. Content refreshers in virtually any area, not just English or history. Philosophy, government, science, math, that's all possible. We have a division at the university called the Center for the Liberal Arts. Victor Luftig, who's co-director, and I work very, very closely together. And again, in fact, I'm leaving here to go back over to Virginia Beach. He's in town. We're going to be talking with some of the people at Virginia Beach about continuing CLA content updates, graduate level courses for their English faculty. And we've been doing a whole series of those with them. And that content, by the way, would be absolutely on the target for people who are teaching a variety of English-type courses here at the community college level. So, my message here is simply, we're interested, we're eager, there is potential. The great dilemma is always getting enough feedback from people who say, this is what I want, this is when I'm ready to take it. And then we need, realistically, about 1 semester's lead time to work that out with the faculty over in Charlottesville and make sure we can adjust their teaching schedules and free them up and get them the heck over here. And then I have to work with the deans of instruction and people like Rick to say, okay, which night, which are we starting at 4? Are we starting at 5? Are we going to have the main sessions here at Thomas Nelson or over at TCC? Obviously, there's some logistical challenges in that. But the eagerness of the university to try to be helpful to you guys in the same way that we're being helpful to K-12 school divisions is very, very real. And I just want you to really hear that and hopefully test it with us. But the main thing is we have to, one, spread the word to people that we're here, but you don't have to come to Virginia Beach to take courses with us. We'll come to you either in person or by DVC connections using electronic classrooms. And the second thing is to identify the types of courses that would be most helpful to you or your colleagues. And again, let me just restate, so just in case you didn't catch it, the 3 possibilities that I see starting next fall and through next academic year are teaching the community college student in the 21st century, which could happen as soon as next fall, the civil rights in the U.S. and Virginia history as early as next fall, and the Uncle Tom's Cabin and American Culture multidisciplinary course in the summer of 2003 or beyond, a year from this summer. Those are the 3 immediate ones. Lots of other possibilities in the meantime if you just let me know what those areas are that you're interested in. Are there any quick questions that I can try to address? Appreciate your time and hanging around. That's a good sign. Okay, thanks. I left material out near the front, Rick. There are a blue and a yellow sheet which describe kind of